Hello everybody and welcome back to the Publisher Podcast from Media Voices. I'm Chris Sutcliffe, and in this podcast, Peter Houston, Esther Thorpe and myself explore the people and products powering publishing, both through this podcast and our adjacent weekly newsletter, which you can and should sign up for at voices.media. Remember that the Publisher Podcast Awards are open for entries until the 14th of March. You can go to publisherpodcast.com for categories and more. And the newsletter awards are also open as of today. That is February the 17th. You can find out more by going to publishernewsletters.com. Come and get involved. It's always an absolutely fantastic night. Everybody loves it, and we'd love to see your entries as well. We are really pleased to have Memberful as sponsors for this season of the Publisher Podcast. With Memberful, you can easily set up and manage your membership programs with Memberful's intuitive features from multiple membership tiers. They're incredibly popular, obviously, across all the membership platforms at the moment, and different payment options to cater to different audience segments. Incredibly useful. And of course, that all helps you to maximize your revenue potential. You can take control of your publishing business with Memberful. Visit memberful.com/publisherpod. That is memberful.com/publisherpod to get started with a free trial. This week, we're hearing from Dan Russell, who is Engagement Director from Reach. Now, I've given him a condensed version of his job title there. You'll hear the slightly longer version as we go through this episode. But as long as his real job title is, his remit is equally as wide. So they've hit some amazing milestones in using WhatsApp to create communities and bring people back through to all of Reach PLC's owned and operated platforms, which, as Peter expanded on in our most recent video podcast, should be the goal for absolutely everybody using social platforms in 2025 and beyond. So in this interview, we spoke about everything from how they're creating communities on WhatsApp, how they're choosing which social networks and which social platforms deserve their investment and for which reasons. And also we talk about how that publisher platform audience relationship has changed over the years. Really fun chat, some amazing milestones in there. Can't wait for you to hear it. So to begin with, I asked Dan how long Reach had been using WhatsApp.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's two answers to that, and you'll find that with me. There might be two answers to every question. But so we started playing with WhatsApp in 2018. Or maybe just before that. And WhatsApp was very, very different then. And we thought there was something in this, and we were very quickly proven right. But the technology at the time wasn't, it just sort of wasn't good enough for what we wanted to achieve. And it became logistically very difficult. Rules around, data protection and things like that were very different then as well. And it sort of fizzled out for us because the technological barriers became sort of too big to scale what we wanted to do. And then about roughly 2 years ago, I can't remember the exact date, WhatsApp brought out some new products. So Communities was one of them, and Channels was the other one. And because I knew the work that we'd done previously worked, but the technology was the problem, I was pretty confident that we would get something out of these new products that WhatsApp have released. And thankfully, we have. January, we had our best day ever for referrals from WhatsApp.
Nice.
January was our best month ever from WhatsApp. Just to give you a scale of the sort of the engagement that we're getting, we got around 4 million referrals to our website from 300,000 people in our communities. And then I mentioned Channels. We've got about 2.5 million people on Channels, and we got around 1 million referrals from those 2.5 million people. So it's an out-and-out success for us, and we don't have anything which is engaged with quite in the same way, but you shouldn't really compare it to anything else either. So I'm cautious to compare it to things. Lots of people take sort of like, they say, oh, it's sort of newsletters. Well, it's not newsletters, but what we did, we took our best bits of newsletters and added them into WhatsApp. But we also took the best bits of social and added them into WhatsApp. And we feel like we've got the right mix at the moment.
Yeah, it's interesting as a platform because it's, like you said, it's not newsletters, it's not email, it's not social as well. It's something completely unique. So, I mean, there's so much there we could pick apart. I wondered, What were the initial aims with it back in 2018, and how has that ethos been carried through with these new products? Because obviously there is a lot there that you wanted to do that you couldn't do until recently.
Yeah, absolutely. The aims were exactly the same. And our aims in distribution, which hopefully we'll have time to talk about as well, they're exactly the same. We want to reach people where they are with our content. And that's it, really. And WhatsApp is so huge, especially in the UK and other countries as well. And it's so direct, it's so huge. It's how do we make this work for ourselves within the platform rules and within what people would expect. So that was the aim, and it's not easy, but we found our way through it, and we've got a great team of people working on it, from within our newsrooms to our sort of central expertise. We have one person who she spends her majority of her day on WhatsApp working with our teams to try and get the best out of it and make sure we're moving forward at all times.
It sort of harkens back to those, the fundamental tenets of news publishing, which is reaching people where they want rather than forcing them to come to you. So I wondered, how are you actually using that for? We can talk about communities in a second. I just wondered, in terms of how you're sharing your content, whether that be news, features, etc., how are you actually doing that via WhatsApp?
Yeah, so one of the things we learned quickly is it's about content. It's not about we're going to do 6 posts a day, one at this time, one at this time, one at this time, and one at this time. It's about, right, we've got content. Is there a community or a channel or a space or whatever you want to call it that is interested in this content? And if the answer is yes, we have either set up a channel or a community or both for that. And if the content is right, we send it, they read it. It's as simple as that. Or watch it, or, because we put video in, or polls, they'll vote on polls. If you get it wrong, you get it wrong very, 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 very quickly. Because if you think about the process and the user journey, you are doing whatever you're doing, taking kids to school, you're at work, in the supermarket, whatever it is. And you get a buzz or a ping or whatever your phone does, and you've been interrupted. And if you're interrupted and it's a good thing, or it's something important, not necessarily good, it's something important, you probably don't mind, because psychologically you've signed up to that service to get that. You've agreed that you want this. But if you get a ping or a vibration or whatever, and it's something that leaves you disappointed, then you're like, why are you bothering me in my day? This is as personal as it gets. It's almost like tapping someone on the shoulder and just talking at them. And when we get it wrong, people leave. It's as simple as that.
Particularly as well because it's an opt-in ecosystem as well. People are on WhatsApp because they want communications from primarily friends and family, but increasingly from outside that.
Yeah, I mean, it's the difference is, as you mentioned, WhatsApp is opt-in. You know what you're going to get. And if you get something that isn't that, that's the problem. Social media, Google Discover, and other platforms like maybe TikTok as well, you sort of trip over the content, right? You're there for, right, I want to do something with my time. I'm going to have a look. I'm going to scroll on a feed, swipe some videos, look on, Google Discover or whatever it is. And you trip over the content and you're getting what you want. With direct messaging, it's different. Same as newsletters. You sign up for something, you expect to get it. If you get something different, it's jarring. And in terms of keeping up with things, we use it. We use it every single day. It's sort of my job and others to make sure we're up on the technological advancements and the policy announcements, and this is coming, that's coming. We also find that we'll wake up and they've changed something, and we have to quickly understand what it is, how that works, and then roll that out to sort of everybody. And you could say that WhatsApp is limited in many ways, but actually that's the advantage, because you know what you're working with, and you know that it penetrates into the audience so much that you just have to change what you're doing to suit it.
One thing you mentioned there, which I'm really intrigued by, is this idea that, in a lot of ways it is quite similar to email newsletters. But email newsletters almost suffer from this There are very few irregularly scheduled newsletters that go out because people expect to get a digest, say, at 8 a.m. or whatever.
Yeah.
Whereas with WhatsApp, it's very different. So I wondered, to what extent is that something you have to think about in terms of your team?
Yeah, so what we think about is what has the person signed up for? What are they expecting? Are we meeting those expectations? And ideally, are we going over their expectations in a positive way? And if somebody's signed up to a breaking news WhatsApp, say, they're expecting breaking news, but they're also expecting to have that breaking news before they've heard it on the radio, or if it's on the TV, or they happen to stumble across it in their Facebook feed, or see it in TikTok 2 days later because of how that algorithm works. So you have to be genuine to what you said you're going to do. Now, if we've had quite a success previously in the Bristol Balloon Fiesta community, and why that was a success is because of the nature of air balloons. You don't know when they're actually going to launch them.
So, of course. Yeah.
You're literally right. We're going to tell people, right, there's a good chance it's today. It's not today. Right.
Right.
And people genuinely like that. But if you tell them, oh, it happened an hour ago.
Yeah. Missed it.
Helpful.
Yeah. Yeah, I hope you enjoyed your extra hour in bed, but you did miss the balloons launching. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but here's a gallery of pictures. Now, the gallery of pictures is nice, but actually they want to know when to look up.
That's such a specific use case, but I guess that's true for a lot of what you actually do.
Yeah, 100%. And you have to look at what's happening. So two extreme examples here. Court cases, trials, okay, by the very nature of it at court, it's serious, right? Some people want to know every sort of cough and spit of that trial. So we'll set something up and say, right, guys, you're going to get everything in here, but this isn't for some people. Some people do not want to know all the details. They just want what did they do? What was the sentence? But we're going to give you everything. And so that's how you can sort of get hold of something, be very open and honest about what you're going to give, but then provide a service to those people. The other example on the opposite side, transfer deadline day, okay? Really big for football, really big across the world, really. We put more staff on distribution from news into sport to be able to manage not just WhatsApp, but distribution in general. And we had our best WhatsApp day on sport because we were doing channels, we were doing communities. And as soon as there was even sort of, I don't know, the hint of something happening at Arsenal or Tottenham, we would send it to people because they were expecting it on that day. But in a week's time, we possibly wouldn't send every single rumour that was happening because the next transfer deadline day is further away. So you have to adapt to the real-time expectations of the audience. We're the Grimsby Telegraph and we serve the great town of Grimsby, and that's fine. But moving to digital, it is geographical, but it's also content and much more about content. And the best journalists know their audiences so they can produce or distribute the content to them, and that is the key difference.
The referrals you've been seeing recently, like January being the best month ever for you guys, is testament to the fact that you're doing that really effectively.
Yeah, and there's a lot of folks who do a lot with forward planning, okay? And it's not just waking up and saying, oh, it's this today. Let's do something. You have to be prepared. You have to have a system, and you have to also know what isn't the opportunity. Because if you put a lot of effort and resource into something that doesn't quite bite or isn't quite right, you could have been doing something better for better results and for serving a community in a better way than maybe not necessarily wasting time, but putting a lot of effort into something with not as much interest.
See, that's interesting. You mentioned communities there, and I just wondered, how do people typically discover communities via WhatsApp on Reach? What's the process for getting people into them to begin with?
Yeah, so channels is easy because people search out channels themselves and just join them. Communities is very much us self-promoting, saying, okay, we are going to run this community on the Taylor Swift tour. Sure. And if you're interested, this is the place for you, because we've got so much content on our website, so much content on our social media. But if you just want the Taylor Swift stuff, this is the place for you. And if you just want Balloon Fiesta, this is the place for you. Because yes, it is on the website, but lots of people, people are time poor and they want everything sort of almost given to them in the right way, in the right format, and that's easy to digest. And WhatsApp answers all of those questions.
To what extent can you brand what you do on there? To what extent do people associate the activity on WhatsApp with Reach as a whole, or the individual brands?
Yeah, so we're quite fortunate in we've had decades, hundreds of years in some cases, of building these brands, and people know what our brands stand for. And they sort of know what to expect. So we, as I say, are fortunate in we have that leg up already. But what we do is we tell people. So we on our sites, you'll see sign up links to all sorts of things, and we tell people this is what you're going to get. This is what we're about, and 9.9 times out of 10, that's what we do, and it almost is self-fulfilling. So I had a WhatsApp message sent to me this week about a bus crashing into a house, and that WhatsApp message was from my mother-in-law, and she had got that from one of our WhatsApp communities, which was sent to me, and it's a perfect example of how it works. People join the communities, they see something in there. This is a bus crash near her house, and they then send it on to friends, family, and so on.
See, that's, again, that just kind of goes back to, I suppose, what initial social distribution was supposed to be. It was about creating those communities and getting people to almost act as extensions of the brand in sharing stuff.
Yeah.
So does WhatsApp have any particular advantages you found over other social channels in terms of doing that, in terms of making people ambassadors for the brand and sharing the news?
Yeah, I mean, the advantage is you're getting through to people in a way that you can't do with others. So email newsletters are great because people open their emails and they sort of expect it, as you say, at certain times of day. We do send breaking newsletters and we do a lot of that, but there's more effort in opening your email inbox than actually opening your WhatsApp, because most people get a very real notification when they get a WhatsApp. The other thing is, and especially communities, which is why we like it so much, is you've got a message from your parents, your friends, your kids, whatever it is. But in there, you've also got whatever the absolute latest update is in the community you have sort of joined. And that's the biggest advantage.
So in terms of the wider strategy, WhatsApp is only one string to the bow in terms of distribution on social through WhatsApp. What trends are you currently seeing in terms of how people like to consume content online? Is it, obviously it varies wildly by platform, I suppose, but are there any overarching trends that you've seen?
Yeah, absolutely. So if I sort of answer the question sort of behind that a little bit, that we are looking at distribution as a whole. So whether that's Twitter, Facebook, WhatsApp, newsletters, emerging platforms, whatever it is. And we've restructured our business in many ways to answer that question because, as I mentioned earlier, the learnings from social and newsletters have made WhatsApp a success. Okay, so what happens if we put this all in the same sphere and take the best learnings? Now, the trends that we are seeing is video is absolutely vital, but also so is the content quickly and accurately to people. And whether that's Facebook with breaking news, whether it's on Instagram, it doesn't matter where it is. The fundamental principles are, and as I say, people are time poor, so they want to know what is happening, why it happened, what's going to happen next. Once you get past that, the format doesn't matter.
How do you manage that almost dichotomy between people being time poor, but also then liking social video? is it a very different behavior? Because obviously social video can be everything. It's, doesn't necessarily need to be news related. It could be, interest related. So how do you actually manage that dichotomy, serving people what they want?
Yeah, so it's results really, because we have a lot of clever people who we do analysis and we look at data, but the real key is the insights. So we know, okay, this worked. And then we go, why did it work? Can we repeat that? And one of the things that I spend a lot of time looking at is what's in the middle, what's consistently in the middle. So it is great to look at the top 10%, and it's great to have a video or a piece of content seen or viewed 10 million times once a month. But I would rather have 10 pieces of content viewed 1 million times every single day. And that is the middle. And what we're trying to do is grow the middle. And obviously we analyze the top, we analyze the bottom. But if we can grow the consistent topics, at this month it is weather, money, crime, court, and you'll be pleased to know that Love Island is coming through.
Oh, thank God. Of course.
So if we look at the middle and grow those topics and continuously grow them, and they're consistent, that's where the success is. And when we do get the one-off stories and the big things that come through that have big hits, we celebrate them. We absolutely do. But can it be repeated? Is it consistent? And if the answer is no, we'll take the win and try and do what we can with it. But we are not taking our eye off the ball of what are our constant performers. Now, when our constant performers change, we change with them.
See, I think that's so fascinating. We spoke to Which not too long ago, and obviously they are, very different from Reach in terms of what they're doing. But one of the things that they said was that they have this focus on TikTok, because even if you don't have a community already on there and people don't know who you are, you can still get those mega hits. And sometimes they'll try to optimize to get those. So how are you managing trying to find those consistent topics, consistent issues that you can focus on across multiple different channels?
So absolutely, and that comes back to the resources and the data that we have. I mean, from my point of view, I feel quite fortunate because Reach has a lot of resources that are made available to make this stuff easy. We also look at competitors in this market as well. So we will look to see, okay, we're doing really well, but we're doing really well on Facebook, but what are our competitors doing? They're doing really well, but they're doing really well off other stuff. It's like, okay, can we do some of that? Should we do some of that? And then it sort of rolls round. I mean, we've had great progress with TikTok recently as well, and I completely understand the challenges there of you can get a huge audience, but how do you monetize that? How do you if we put, say, 10 people on one TikTok account, we will make it grow and it'll be incredible. But actually, how do we make that pay? It's extremely valuable for brand, which is great. So that is some of it. It's also reaching a youth audience and growing our brand. So that is some of it. So it really is a sort of a tightrope of weighing up, okay, we need to be over here. How do we make something of it? And, one of the things that we have at Reach is the OK Beauty Box. We have a TikTok shop and we sell our OK Beauty Box products through TikTok shop. And, okay, that's great because we've monetized that. And, Instagram's another one. So we've had great growth on Instagram and getting page views back to site. And it's a bit like, well, how are you doing that? Because there's no link in the grid and most people do that. So it's a mixture of Instagram channels, which is basically WhatsApp channels in Instagram. It's Instagram stories with, say, swipe up links. And then we're using technology to sort of automate link in bio. So we're creating images a lot quicker.
So, I mean, there's a lot there. What I'm taking away is the fact that you are using these platforms very selectively, these channels very selectively, but there are universal lessons that you're taking about community growth. You mentioned the fact that, WhatsApp and some of the channels on Instagram are very similar in a lot of ways. So to what extent do you feel like there is, or rather, how do you characterize the relationship now between publishers, platforms, and audiences?
I think some of it, as you mentioned there, some of it is around growth. And if you have something unique and something valuable to people, you can grow something around it. What that something is, it could be, I don't know, a Facebook group, it could be a TikTok account, a YouTube account, whatever it is. And we've had huge growth in the last year. We've just hit 100 million followers across all of our social accounts, which is incredible. And
I was trying to picture how many zeros that was, and I had to take a second, almost step back mentally to get them all in.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's something that is a huge amount of hard work. But you can't just stop. You can't just stop there and say, okay, we've got this big number, which is grown really well. We need to also try and unlock that audience, and to unlock that audience, you have to do a bit of a dance. The platforms are the lead, and you have to dance with them and change your content. Not necessarily the core of what the messaging you're giving, but you have to change how it's displayed, how you upload it, and things like that. So you can take one story and we can put it across several platforms, but we will have to repackage it, change it, to get the best out of that platform. And sometimes it'll be like, okay, that story just isn't right for that platform at all.
That's a level of discipline that is really impressive, because there must be such an impetus to just put everything on everything and just flood the channels with as much as you can to get as many eyeballs on.
Yeah.
But it sounds like you're actually saying that big number is almost a step along the way to something more meaningful. It's not the end in and of itself.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's yes, we have the big number. We've grown overall. It's something like 19% year on year, our follower base. Fantastic, absolutely fantastic. But if you don't unlock it, as I say, you're in trouble. But what we've got really good at is unlocking it. So, for instance, we've had a really good start to the year. I'm very, very pleased. But some of the highlights for me is Facebook used to be quite not easy, but you used to be able to put content out there and it would go and go and go, and you'd get growth and growth and growth. That's not the case anymore, and you have to be more strategic. You have to understand how the algorithms work and all that sort of thing. But even with that, the Daily Express in January saw a 92% increase in traffic to our website from Facebook compared to the previous January. Manchester Evening News up 37% year on year. Again, you can't ask, two completely different titles and different strategies as well, I may add, but it's working. And there's loads and loads of other examples like that. So we've had a good start to the year, and we just need to keep continuing with the fundamentals of how do we drive forward? How do we give the people that view our content what they want? And if we do that, we should be okay.
And I think that something that our audience will be particularly interested to hear is how that is all fed back and how that strategy is ultimately sort of disseminated through the various channels and teams. So is it, does everything sort of flow from you at this point, or how does everything how does all the insight get fed back and then sort of deployed across Reach's titles? Yeah,
so I'm really fortunate. I work with some very, very clever people, and we've got a structure now which sort of helps us pivot. And we're a massive company. We've got well over 1,000 social media accounts, and as I say, 100 million followers now. And being able to do things quickly and change things can be hard. So how our newsrooms are set up, our newsrooms will have sort of individual audience teams, and centrally we have audience teams as well, which we call our distribution team. So they have tasks, or they can go fill in for newsrooms. They're very nimble, and everything then sort of comes into me and my teams in a way, but I can't do anything unless the people on the ground are telling me what they're seeing and what they think, and try things. So there's loads of occasions where I'll say, right, try this, and someone will come back and go, that definitely did not work. And it's like, okay, right, I'm sorry about that. It's okay.
Yeah, my bad.
It's okay, but it didn't work for you because we're going to stop everybody else doing that in the rest of the group.
Yeah, you learned that lesson so that other people don't necessarily make it.
Absolutely. And then on the other hand, for instance, we've got various working groups for various platforms, and Reddit being one of them. And we're having quite a lot of success with Reddit at the minute. And someone will say, right, we've had success with this, doing it in this way, this type of headline or this picture or this video or whatever it is. And then we'll go, okay, well, can you and you try this next? They'll try it and they'll come back, yes, it's success. It's like, okay, we'll try this everywhere. And then there's success, and then you'll see a lift. So one of the things that we're looking at the moment is threads. So threads, not many people talk about threads at the moment. And we're seeing really, really good success from threads because we're using technology. We've got a scheduling platform, and we've plugged threads into that scheduling platform. And it's made us able to make decisions on content much quicker and easier, and we've seen a huge rise in threads traffic to our stories. And at the minute, those stories tend to be two things: really hard crime news stories, or stories with a celebrity's name in. At the moment, There is nothing in between. But the question is, are we trying anything in between? Because there could be an audience out there we're not serving. So that's the next thing. But we're only 2 weeks into that strategy at the moment. So we don't know. But what we do know is, we've gone from maybe sort of 10,000 referrals a day to somewhere around 100,000 in 2 weeks.
Nice.
So things are working. It's how you bottle that and put it out to everybody else.
Reddit is a fascinating case study. I've seen publishers trying stuff on there, whether that be, they're buying advertising space on there. They're doing AMAs for some of their main writers. The FT did that really, really well. How are you actually experimenting with that? Because it's so unique in like the same way that WhatsApp is. It's both community based, but it's also about, what reaches the front page. So how are you actually experimenting?
Yeah, absolutely. So our US brands have had huge success on Reddit by following the platform rules and being in the places where people are asking questions and trying to answer those questions, or simply having a piece of information that nobody's got and knowing that community would like that. That's quite simple, but actually there's not many people who are doing it. You cannot use Reddit to sort of carpet bomb it with links and with the hope. You can't do that. You have to be very precise, and you have to do it in the right way, and all that sort of thing. So our US brands are absolutely doing fantastically, and I'm very, very pleased. The other thing that we're finding is we're having quite a lot of success with video. Now, again, this is like the TikTok conundrum. We put video on Reddit. What are we getting back from that? And it's like, well, if you want to count it in money, we are getting nothing back from it. But actually, when you put a video out, so the Manchester Evening News put a video out this week, and it was to do with the plans for the revamping of one of their airport terminals, okay? And if you've flown from Manchester Airport, that specific terminal, it needs a lick of paint, to say the least. And immediately there was like 40 people talking about the airport. We're not talking about the brand, and that's fine, but this video sparked conversation, and that might be it. But actually there might be a follow-up story. And what you're doing is actually, people aren't thinking, oh, that's Manchester Evening News and a great video. But next time they see one of our videos, they might actually go, okay, we're going to watch that as well. And then suddenly your account starts to grow and you get a better standing. And then when you do have something which you can drive traffic back to, people have got the trust in the brand, and it's a much longer term play, and it's about being in those communities. And that goes all the way back to when I was a reporter, just starting out. I was given a patch, and I was in that community 4 days out of 5, talking to people and everything like that. This is almost the digital equivalent of a patch and being in there.
That's such a good way of putting it, and it does speak to, I think, that kind of interest-based publishing strategy, because it's geographical, it's where people live, but it's also something that people in that community have experience of. They need to, or they want to see some change, and that's very much almost what local news did really, really well for so long. It's the pothole-based publishing strategy. I mean, I'm fascinated by the whole idea of actually making a success of it on Reddit, because it seemed, for the longest time, it seemed like it was just the Wild West in terms of what people could actually achieve on there.
It is the Wild West still. However, with the changes and the relationship they have now with Google and all that sort of thing, you cannot deny that Reddit as a platform has exploded. It's one of the top visited websites in the world now, and with that becomes more interest from people. And those people are interested in the content that we have. Now, we may need to change it to abide by Reddit's rules, and that's fine. But we are seeing we are seeing a lot of success. And what we're also finding, as millions of more people use Reddit, they have their own stories, and we see their stories, and that creates content for us as well. And I've got numerous of examples of stories that we've got that we would not have had if we hadn't have seen it on Reddit.
It's that digital patch mentality as well. It's source of story, but also how you actually disseminate news. I mean, it sounds like a fun role in a lot of ways. Obviously, there's a lot of pressure, but at the same time, you do get to be agile. You get to try stuff and experiment.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm very lucky. I'm given the freedom to do that. I have a marvelous time. The expectation, though, is that we don't waste time, we don't waste resource, and everything is done sort of with data, and that's something that we can do to analyze and say, is this a success or isn't it? For me, the best insight is actually don't do that, because that's really definitive. And if you can have some insight to say, actually stop doing that, that's fine. You can move on, and you can try other things. And in short, my job is to grow audiences off our websites, and that can be anything, and that's quite exciting.
Yeah, that's a big remit. One of the things I should have actually put this in, so I might edit this back in. So, I mean, that's been a fascinating whirlwind tour through everything you've been doing, and some amazing stats in there. So when you think long term about how audiences are using social platforms, and they're using Reddit, they're using WhatsApp, and they're also very different, but at the same time, it ultimately does come down to, as we've said, some of the fundamentals of getting information out there, doing good journalism. What do you foresee as being some of the priorities for not just reach, but for for publishers, media companies as a whole, when they think about using these platforms?
Yeah, I mean, you can't be afraid to start over. And there's a lot of data and a lot of industry analysis which shows platforms are growing, and it's getting harder to get people back to your website, whether it's a social platform, whether it's somebody scrolling on TikTok, whether it's somebody logging into MSN on their desktop at lunch, and reading stories there, because that's quickest for me and them, because they press the button on their computer and there it is. And we're not, like I say, we're not afraid to start over. And the key is to find the audience where it is and be there, and figure out, how do we make it a commercial success? How do we get enough either traffic or money or a partnership or branded content, whatever the revenue stream is, to be where they are? Because every person I work with, they want their content to be read or viewed or seen. And it's okay, if we start from that being the starting position, we need to go where the people are, and then we need to figure out the method of making it sustainable after that.
Nice, fantastic. Dan, thank you so much for coming on and having a chat. I know my co-host Peter will be absolutely all over that idea that sometimes you can't necessarily drive people back to the site, but it's about finding a way to make it successful regardless. So I'm looking forward to his reaction as well. But thank you so much for coming on.
Brilliant. Thank you for having me.
And thank you so much to Dan for speaking to us. Don't forget that we have a write-up of all the key learnings from this interview on voices.media, or it gets dropped in your inbox every Tuesday if you sign up to the publisher newsletter, also on voices.media. Really do advise you go and check out some of our old episodes. They're a time capsule, and also, selfishly, I use them to get quite a lot of ideas for pitches. I'll just go back a year, see what people were talking about, and then just pitch an update on it. And don't tell anybody else about that, because it's making me bank. But we're going to be back next week with another dive into the people and products powering publishing's future. Until then, you can keep up with all things Media Voices by following us on LinkedIn, subscribing to the publisher newsletter over on voices.media, or by going back and checking out the archive. But for now, thank you so much for listening, and goodbye.